Hello, my ravenous readers. It's Uncle Sean here. Welcome back to Kelly Street. Another week is over, but that brings us that much closer to this week's Read Aloud. If you've been enjoying our reading time together, like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit that bell icon so you can be notified about future videos. I'll tell you one thing, readers, as we get closer and closer to the end of this book, I am getting more and more excited about what is going to happen next. How is this incredible adventure going to end? It's been a long journey for us to get to this point in the story. If you think back, you'll remember all 5 children and their families eagerly awaiting the once-in-a-lifetime chance to tour Willy Wonka's factory. Golden tickets clutched tightly in their little hands. But along their journey, many of the young guests lost their way. First, there was Augustus Gloop, the greedy boy. He fell into Mr. Wonka's chocolate river and was sucked up into the enormous glass pipes. Then, Violet Beauregard, the girl who chewed gum all day long, finally found a piece of gum that didn't agree with her. In fact, it made her blow up like a giant blueberry. And Veruca Salt, remember her? The girl who was spoiled by her parents? She ended up going down the garbage chute with all the other bad nuts. And lastly, we had Mike TV, the boy who does nothing but watch television. He volunteered himself, despite Mr. Wonka's protests, for an especially dangerous and foolish experiment. Poor Mike TV ended getting shrunk down to size. That leaves only Charlie Bucket. And today we'll be reading chapter 28, called Only Charlie Left. And we'll see what new adventures lie in store for our young hero. The question we need to ask ourselves is, what will happen now? Well, there's only one way to find out. So sit back, get comfortable, and let's read.
"Which room shall it be next?" said Mr. Wonka as he turned away and darted into the elevator. "Come on, hurry up. We must get going. And how many children are there left now?" Little Charlie looked at Grandpa Joe, and Grandpa Joe looked back at little Charlie. "But Mr. Wonka," Grandpa Joe called after him, There's only Charlie left now." Mr. Wonka swung round and stared at Charlie. There was a silence. Charlie stood there holding tightly onto Grandpa Joe's hand. "You mean you're the only one left?" Mr. Wonka said, pretending to be surprised. "Why, yes," whispered Charlie. "Yes." Mr. Wonka suddenly exploded with excitement. "But my dear boy," he cried out, "that means you've won!" He rushed out of the elevator and started shaking Charlie's hand so furiously it nearly came off. "Oh, I do congratulate you," he cried. "I really do. I'm absolutely delighted. It couldn't be better. How wonderful this is. I had a hunch, you know, right from the beginning that it was going to be you. Well done, Charlie. Well done. This is terrific. Now the fun is really going to start. But we mustn't dilly. We mustn't dally. There's even less time to lose now than there was before. We have an enormous number of things to do before the day is out. Just think of the arrangements that have to be made, and the people we have to fetch. But luckily for us, we have the great glass elevator to speed things up. Jump in, my dear Charlie, jump in. You too, Grandpa Joe, sir. No, after you. That's the way. Now then. This time I shall choose the button we are going to press." Mr. Wonka's bright twinkling blue eyes rested for a moment on Charlie's face. Something crazy is going to happen now, Charlie thought, but he wasn't frightened. He wasn't even nervous. He was just terrifically excited. And so was Grandpa Joe. The old man's face was shining with excitement as he watched every move that Mr. Wonka made. Mr. Wonka was reaching for a button high up on the glass ceiling of the elevator. Charlie and Grandpa Joe both craned their necks to read what it said on the little label beside the button. It said, "Up and out." "Up and out," thought Charlie. "What sort of a room is that?" Mr. Wonka pressed the button. The glass doors closed. "Hold on," cried Mr. Wonka. Then wham! The elevator shot straight up like a rocket. "Yippee!" shouted Grandpa Joe. Charlie was clinging to Grandpa Joe's legs, and Mr. Wonka was holding onto a strap from the ceiling. And up they went. Up, up, up. Straight up this time with no twistings or turnings. And Charlie could hear the whistling of the air outside as the elevator went faster and faster. "Yippee!" shouted Grandpa Joe again. Yippee! Here we go! Faster! cried Mr. Wonka, banging the wall of the elevator with his hand. Faster! Faster! If we don't go any faster than this, we shall never get through. Through what? Shouted Grandpa Joe. What have we got to get through? Aha! Cried Mr. Wonka. You wait and see. I've been longing to press this button for years, but I've never done it until now. I was tempted many times. Oh yes, I was tempted. But I couldn't bear the thought of making a great big hole in the roof of the factory. Here we go, boys. Up and out. But, it's made of glass, shouted Grandpa Joe. It'll break into a million pieces. I suppose it might, said Mr. Wonka, cheerful as ever. But it's pretty thick glass all the same. The elevator rushed on, going up and up and up, faster and faster and faster. Then suddenly, crash. And the most tremendous noise of splintering wood and broken tiles came from directly above their heads, and Grandpa Joe shouted, Help! It's the end! We're done for! And Mr. Wonka said, No, we're not. We're through. We're out. Sure enough, the elevator had shot right up through the roof of the factory and was now rising into the sky like a rocket, and the sunshine was pouring in through the glass roof. In 5 seconds, they were 1,000 feet up in the sky. The elevator's gone mad, shouted Grandpa Joe. Have no fear, my dear sir, said Mr. Wonka calmly, and he pressed another button. The elevator stopped. It stopped and hung in midair, hovering like a helicopter, hovering over the factory and over the very town itself, which lay spread out below them like a picture postcard. Looking down through the glass floor on which he was standing, Charlie could see the small faraway houses and the streets and the snow that lay thickly over everything. It was an eerie and frightening feeling to be standing on clear glass high up in the sky. It made you feel that you weren't standing on anything at all. Are we all right? Cried Grandpa Joe. How does this thing stay up? Candy power, said Mr. Wonka. 1 million candy power. Oh, look, he cried, pointing down. There go the other children. They're returning home.
Well, that's the end of chapter 28. And Charlie Bucket, Grandpa Joe, and Willy Wonka aboard the great glass elevator just smashed their way up and out right through the roof of the chocolate factory. And it looks like Charlie is going to be the winner of Mr. Wonka's mysterious grand prize. But we're going to have to wait until next time to learn more about what that prize is going to be. If you're watching this with someone, you can pause the video now and make your prediction about what the prize will be. What might it be? What would you want it to be if you were in Charlie's place? Well, now that we've seen so much of Willy Wonka's factory, we just know that it's going to be something absolutely unforgettable. Tune in next time to see if your predictions were close. Don't forget to like today's video and subscribe to Kelly Street Productions and hit that bell icon so you never miss a Read Aloud. That's all the time we have for this week's episode, but remember, there are many little ways to enlarge your world. Love of books is the best of all. I'll see you next time. Bye! Hey, well look who's still hanging around. Well, if you're still here, then you must have time for a joke. How about a chocolate joke? Actually, I heard a joke about a chocolate bar, but it wasn't that funny. I only snickered. Get it? See you next time.